Now, aside from the specific details about Monday's flotilla raid, which we may or may not get from an international investigation, there are larger political issues at hand here. And many are criticizing the U.S. for being on the wrong side, including Turkey, that in the past has played a very important strategic role as a friend to the U.S. there in the Muslim world. Well, earlier I caught up with Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks to get his take on the entire situation, and I first asked him what he thinks of the U.S. response. Are they being wishy-washy or clearly taking Israel's side?
Well, first, of course they're being wishy-washy, but it's hard to say they're not supporting Israel all the way. How much more could they support them? Should they get out there and go, yay, 9 people were killed? That rocks. I mean, they've done just about everything else they can to support Israel. There's a great article in Foreign Policy magazine explaining step-by-step how Obama called Netanyahu 3 different times to basically ask him, what can I do for you? And then the Israeli spokesperson bragged, Mark Regev did, saying America successfully watered down the United Nations resolution. So we're not looking at this from a neutral perspective. And by the way, we shouldn't be, except we should be on the other side. Why? An American citizen was apparently executed on board. This gentleman, Doan, was shot in the chest 1 time, and he was shot in the head 4 times at close range. I don't see how you can think of that as anything but an execution. Shouldn't we be a little angry that an American citizen got executed by the government of Israel?
Yeah, well, first of all, those statements that you brought up, I'm happy you brought them up. We showed them here yesterday on the show because Michael Oren, the Israeli ambassador to the U.S., had said the exact same thing, that they were very thankful for the U.S. convincing the UN to water down, soften their stance. They also were very happy that Bibi and Obama did get talk on the phone 3 times. But you're right, now there is an American casualty involved here. However, this man did spend most of his life since he was 2 years old living in Turkey. But do you think that this is going to bring out a little more emotion in Americans? Does this change the playing field at all?
I don't know if that anything can change the American politicians. They could have executed 12 American citizens there. They could have all lived in Nebraska their whole lives. I'm not sure it would have made any difference. I mean, as far as the American people are concerned, yes, that it definitely affects them. But the politicians are so thoroughly in the pocket of the Israeli lobby here. And I don't say that in a derogatory way. It's just AIPAC has figured out a brilliant way of capturing the politicians, as have our multinational corporations, etc., and the NRA. They've just done a brilliant job at it, so nobody's going to break that lock. I mean, so he lived in Turkey, so what? I mean, can you imagine if there was a Jewish American who had lived in Israel most of his life, and Hamas had boarded that ship and shot him in the head 4 times? You think the Americans wouldn't call that terrorism? You think they wouldn't call that an execution of an American citizen by the terrorist group Hamas? Of course they would. So what's the difference?
I'm sure they would. And actually, I really want to get your perspective here as someone who is Turkish, because Turkey really has been a friend to the U.S. in the Muslim world, someone that was a very important partner strategically. And so now both the U.S. and Israel basically are, well, you know, poo-pooing them, turning their backs. Do you think that that's going to end up hurting them? How important was that relationship?
Well, I think it's very important to the United States strategically. Turkey is a democratic country there, and a secular country, and certainly in a region of the world that they desperately need a shining example of a successful secular democracy. Now, the current government happens to be more religious, but that's only within the context of Turkey, where every institution is so secular. Of course, when the United States needed the help of Turkey with the Soviet Union, Turkey was there. When they need help in every other way, Turkey's there. But when Turkey needs help, is America there? Well, if it's not inconvenient to Israel. And in this case, it was. So far, I mean, have you seen it? I haven't seen America really step up and defend their ally here. I don't know if people know this. Turkey's a NATO ally, and their flagged ship was attacked. Technically, legally, NATO was attacked by Israel. Is the U.S. doing anything about that? Nah, it's too inconvenient. NATO versus Israel, Israel wins every time in America.
Well, the excuse that they're using here is that these weren't, in fact, peaceful activists on that flotilla, but they were members of an extremist Turkish organization that has ties to al-Qaeda. Is there any truth behind that?
Okay, first of all, the ties to al-Qaeda is nonsense. Haaretz, a paper in Israel, just put out an editorial today saying, hey, I mean, how far or how low is the Israeli government going to go here in their excuses? Next is an Irish ship coming in. Are they going to say the Irish ship has al-Qaeda ties? It's just easy to say because Turkey's a Muslim country. Yeah, they're all terrorists. They all have connections to al-Qaeda. It's absolute nonsense. As far as whether there was a confrontation on the ship, there absolutely was. You could see it in the video, no question, that the people on board were using sticks, etc., right? Now, if your ship is being boarded in international waters illegally, again, think about it this way. If Hamas was boarding that ship, would anybody in America say that the people on board should not have defended themselves? No one would say that, right? But since Israel's boarding the ship, everybody has to lie down. And honestly, that's what I would have done. And that's what I would have encouraged everybody on the ship to do. I don't think it helped them at all to attack the commandos with whatever they had on board, whether it was plates or marbles or whatever it might be. But the fact is, they were in the right legally, they were defending themselves, and they didn't ask to get executed on board.
Cenk, well, what I really want to ask you about here is it doesn't really matter, I think, what they were perhaps defending themselves with, be it marbles or simple, bars that they had. One of the things that Israel's getting a lot of flack for is that they're not releasing the full videotapes. They're releasing 1-minute-long edited versions. This is what a lot of people would call Hasbara, their PR spin machine. But why do you think that they are doing that? Isn't that just hurting themselves more?
Well, no, they have this great spin on this where they say, look, these are the people attacking us. Can't you see it? We released 2 minutes out of the hours of video that we have. Look, remember, they have the IDF video, which is their aerial shot in the first clip that we saw. Then they have all of the video on board, including journalist video. That's got hours and hours of footage. They won't release any of that because it's obviously incredibly damaging to them. It might show how some of the people on board were shot. 30 people were shot, 9 of them killed, right? They don't want to release any of that. This is propaganda and spin by releasing these tiny, tiny portions that show something that's beneficial to them for tiny flashes. So now why do the news organizations throughout the world tolerate this? They should say every time they run one of those videos, if they run them at all, to say that this is completely out of context and that the Israeli government will not release the full tapes, which could show something far more damaging to Israel.
Well, it definitely doesn't help them to gain the trust of the rest of the international community if they're not going to release the full videos, and then they'll say, we'll do our own investigation. Thanks. Cenk, that's all the time we have, but thank you so much for joining me. And we will, I think, see how perhaps this one bloody incident might really get people to start asking questions also about the Gaza blockade that's been going on for 4 years now. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.